My oncologist told me the word clear on a cold Tuesday morning at Princess Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto, and I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, crying too hard to drive. After 8 months of chemotherapy, after losing my hair and 30 pounds and entire weeks I cannot fully remember, the cancer was gone. I called my husband first. He didn't answer. I told myself he was in a meeting. He ran a real estate investment firm downtown and Tuesdays were client days. I left a voicemail. "It's over, I'm clear, I love you, come home early," and drove back to our house in the Beaches neighborhood, through the November sleet, past the coffee shops and the dog walkers and the ordinary Tuesday afternoon that had no idea what had just happened to me. I turned my key in the front door at 2 in the afternoon. The kitchen light was on. I heard music, something low and easy, and the smell of coffee. My husband didn't drink coffee. My best friend was sitting on the kitchen island in one of my husband's old university sweatshirts, her bare feet dangling over the cabinet doors we had spent a weekend installing together 4 years ago. She looked at me the way you look at a piece of furniture you forgot was in the room. Her mug was on the counter. There was a second mug beside it. My husband came out of the hallway. His shirt was untucked. Neither of them spoke. The music kept playing from the small Bluetooth speaker on the windowsill that I had picked out at the Distillery District Market 2 Christmases ago. I stood in the doorway with my keys in my hand and my coat still on, and the hospital parking ticket in my pocket, and I understood in a single, clean, shattering second exactly what I was looking at and exactly how long it had been going on. My best friend slid off the counter. She smoothed the sweatshirt, my sweatshirt, one I'd left behind when I started losing weight, and met my eyes with something that was not guilt and not shame. It was closer to relief, like I had finally shown up to a conversation she was tired of postponing. "We were going to talk to you," she said, "when you were stronger." My husband put one hand on the counter and looked somewhere past my shoulder. "Let's not do this right now. You're emotional, you just got out of an appointment." I had just been told I was cancer-free for the first time in 8 months, and the 2 people I had called from the hospital bed when I was too sick to speak were standing in my kitchen, telling me I was too emotional to be spoken to. I set my keys on the table, I sat down at the chair closest to the door, and I said absolutely nothing. "I want you to understand something about me. I have worked for the Canada Revenue Agency for 11 years, most of them in the offshore tax compliance and forensic audit division out of the Toronto office. My job is to find money that does not want to be found. Money hidden in numbered companies and offshore accounts and layers of corporate structure designed specifically to make investigators give up. I am trained, professionally and temperamentally, to go very quiet when the situation is most dangerous. The people who talk when they are panicked are the ones who make mistakes. I learned that early. I sat in that kitchen for 2 hours while my husband packed an overnight bag, while my best friend explained in a careful, practiced voice that she hadn't meant for it to happen, that it had started during my second round of chemo, when she had been coming over to check on the house, that she hoped I understood, while they both left together in his car. I sat until the kitchen went dark and the Bluetooth speaker disconnected because no one was near enough to keep it paired. Then I opened his laptop, which he had left charging on the counter, because we shared a streaming account, and he had never bothered to lock it. He wasn't careful because he never thought I was paying attention. That was his first mistake. I found the email thread in 4 minutes. It went back 14 months, 2 months before my diagnosis. He had been planning the divorce before I got sick. My best friend had been there from the beginning, suggesting property lawyers, discussing asset timelines, speculating about what the house would sell for. There was an email sent 3 weeks into my first round of chemo, written in his handwriting. "She's too exhausted to check anything right now. This is when we move the money." I closed the laptop. I walked down the hall to my home office and opened my own computer. I had $312,000 in a high-yield savings account at RBC. I had built it for 11 years, deposit by deposit, from CRA bonuses and overtime pay, and the specific discipline of a woman who grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Hamilton and never once forgot what it felt like to have the hydro shut off in February. The account balance read $47,000. I refreshed the page. I blinked. I refreshed it again. The transaction history showed a single outgoing wire transfer dated 6 weeks earlier to a numbered company, 2847193 Ontario Inc., for $265,000. Status cleared. I sat back in my chair. I was still wearing my coat. Outside, the sleet had turned to rain. My phone rang, my mother-in-law calling from Oakville. I answered. "I heard what happened," she said. Her voice had the careful quality of someone who had rehearsed this. "I think you need to understand that these things don't come from nowhere, sweetheart. My son has been under tremendous pressure. You've been unwell, really unwell, and illness puts a strain on a marriage." She paused in a way that made clear she was placing the blame precisely where she intended. "I think you need to ask yourself whether you were really present in this relationship, whether he felt supported." I had spent 3 nights at my in-laws' house during chemo when I was too nauseated to be alone. My mother-in-law had driven me to 2 of my appointments. She had sat beside me in the waiting room and held my hand while I got blood drawn. My father-in-law had brought me soup in a thermos with a lid that didn't quite fit and sat on the edge of the guest bed telling me stories about working up north until I fell asleep. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "He's not a bad man. He just needs someone who can actually keep up with the life he's building." I hung up. I did not cry. I went back to my computer and started working. The divorce papers arrived at my office on St. Clair Avenue West 12 days later, served by a process server in the lobby, loud enough that 2 colleagues looked up from their desks. The petition named me as respondent in a fault-based divorce. Under the grounds for accelerated proceedings, his lawyer had written that I suffered from documented psychological instability and emotional volatility resulting from prolonged illness, and that my behavior posed a risk to the stability of shared financial arrangements. He was arguing that my cancer treatment had made me mentally unfit. He was asking for the matrimonial home, sole control of joint assets, and spousal support of $4,000 a month, based on his claim that managing a severely ill spouse had impaired his ability to run his firm at full capacity. I went to the bathroom. I stood at the sink for 5 minutes. Then I went back to my desk and made an appointment with my family law lawyer for that evening. Ingrid met me at her office in Bloor West Village. She had been my attorney since I'd done some estate planning work 3 years earlier. She wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck and had a habit of tapping her pen against her legal pad when she was thinking hard. She read the divorce petition in silence, tapped her pen 8 times and looked up. "He's moving fast because he thinks he's already won," she said. "That's actually useful." I told her about the wire transfer. I told her about the numbered company. I told her what I did for the CRA specifically. I watched her expression shift from concern to calculating, and I knew we understood each other. "How long would it take you to pull his corporate filings?" she asked. "Give me the weekend," I said. I spent Friday night and all of Saturday at the kitchen table, my kitchen in the house that still had his coffee mug drying on the rack, with my secure CRA-issued laptop, a pot of tea going cold beside me, and 11 years of forensic audit training applied to one very specific target. My husband had been meticulous about separating his personal finances from the investment firm, the kind of meticulous that is designed to look like nothing is being hidden. But I know exactly what that pattern looks like, because I have spent a decade watching sophisticated people do it badly. The seams he had left were visible to me, the way a bad paint job is visible to someone who knows what the original wall looked like. His firm managed roughly $4 million in real estate investments for private clients, mostly older couples from his parents' Oakville circle, who trusted him because they had known his family for 20 years. The model was simple. Clients invested, he acquired properties appreciated, returns were distributed quarterly, except the returns were not coming from appreciation. I pulled his Ontario corporate registry filings, his HST remittances, his T2 corporate tax returns for 4 years. The numbers did not reconcile. Properties listed as assets on investor statements had either never been acquired or had been sold for significantly less than reported. The gap, the money that existed on paper for his clients but had quietly vanished, was approximately $1.3 million over 4 years, redirected through a chain of 6 numbered companies ending at an account in the Turks and Caicos. My $265,000 had been the most recent contribution to keeping that chain alive. My best friend appeared in the corporate filings as a marketing consultant for the firm. She had been paid $62,000 over 18 months, listed as a legitimate business expense. She had recruited 11 of his 32 investors. She had sat across from retired couples in their Oakville kitchens and described the fund's returns with warmth and trustworthiness. She had apparently been practicing on me for years. She was not a victim of his, she was his business partner. I worked until 4 in the morning. I saved everything to an encrypted drive, made 3 copies and stored them separately. Then I slept for 6 hours and called Ingrid on Sunday afternoon. He's filed an emergency motion to freeze joint assets, Ingrid told me. He's telling the court you may act erratically with marital property. He wants interim control of everything. Let him have it, I said. There was a pause. Walk me through that. 3 years before my diagnosis, I had incorporated a numbered company for a client who subsequently went bankrupt and could not pay his outstanding professional fees. The company's administrative structure, the registered Ontario agent, the corporate address, the annual filing costs, had come to me as partial reimbursement. I had kept it active because it cost $90 a year and I was not sure yet what to do with it. My husband, during his rushed asset restructuring 14 months earlier, had transferred the title of our matrimonial home into a numbered company to shield it from professional liability. He had used a discount online broker that sold off-the-shelf Ontario corporate shells. The broker had sold him mine. He had signed the quitclaim deed himself 6 weeks ago. He had transferred our home directly into a company I had owned for 3 years. He had not run a deep registry search. He had been in too much of a hurry, and he had been far too certain that he was the only one in the marriage who understood how any of this worked. He gave you the house, Ingrid said very quietly. He gave me the house, I said. Now let's give him the rest. The settlement Ingrid drafted looked, from the outside, like unconditional surrender. I conceded all rights to the numbered company holding the house. I conceded the joint savings account. I agreed to a non-disparagement clause and waived spousal support. In exchange, I asked only that the agreement confirm all decisions made by his real estate investment firm and its associated entities were made under his sole authority, and that I had no knowledge of or participation in his firm's financial activities. He was, in signing page 4, swearing under penalty of perjury to his sole control over the fraud. He signed it on a Wednesday morning at his lawyer's boardroom table. His lawyer attempted twice to slow him down. My husband told him he was overthinking a straightforward document. He initialed page 4 without reading it. He texted my best friend from the lobby afterward. Done. She walked away with nothing. Told you she'd fold. She sent him a champagne emoji. I know this because Ingrid had already sent the full case package, the corporate filings, the transaction records, the investor fraud documentation, and the signed settlement to the CRA Criminal Investigations Division and the RCMP Commercial Crime Unit the previous evening. The quarterly investor meeting for his firm was held the following Thursday at a private club in Yorkville. My father-in-law was there. 11 of his friends from the Oakville Golf Club were there. My husband had sent a polished presentation 2 days earlier, outlining a new acquisition fund and inviting existing clients to increase their positions before year-end. The CRA officers and RCMP commercial crime investigators were waiting in the lobby when he arrived. I was not there. I did not need to be. I had already done everything that needed to be done. Ingrid was there. She served the certified notice confirming my sole ownership of the numbered company, and therefore the house, to the club's front desk while federal officers were presenting my husband with search warrants in the main room. I am told he tried to argue. I am told my father-in-law, sitting at the investor table and realizing slowly that the fund he had put his retirement savings into no longer had accessible assets, had to be helped to a chair. My mother-in-law called me from the parking lot of the club at 9:30 that night. You did this, she said. You destroyed him. He defrauded your retirement savings, I said, and your neighbors. I reported it because I am legally and professionally obligated to report it, and because I would have done the same for anyone. You did this because he left you. I thought about the voicemail I had left from the hospital parking garage. I thought about sitting alone in the dark kitchen in my coat while the rain came down outside. I thought about that email. She's too exhausted to check anything right now. You should speak to a lawyer, I said, one who is not connected to his case. My husband faces charges of fraud over $5,000, breach of trust, and laundering the proceeds of crime under the Criminal Code of Canada. His trial date is pending. My best friend accepted a plea agreement in February and is serving 18 months at a minimum security facility, having cooperated fully with the RCMP's investigation into the offshore account structure. The house is mine. It was technically always mine. I did not know that when I sat alone in the kitchen that November night. I did not know anything yet, except that the account balance was wrong, and my coat was still on and something had broken open that I had not yet begun to name. Ingrid and I incorporated a forensic accounting and asset recovery firm in January. We consult with families who have been defrauded by people they trusted, people who believed that trust was a kind of armor. We have 9 clients already. 3 of them are retired couples from Oakville who put their life savings into a real estate fund managed by a man they had known for 20 years. They needed someone who understood exactly how the money had moved. They needed someone who knew which walls to look behind. When my oncologist asked at my 6-month follow-up how I was doing, I told him the short version. He said some people respond to surviving by making themselves smaller. He said others respond by becoming very precisely what the situation required. I went home to my house, mine, clean and fully mine, and I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and watched the lake through the back window until the light went out. If this story feels familiar to you, if you have ever been the person in the room that everyone assumed would not notice, would not fight back, would fold under enough pressure, I want you to know that the people who underestimate you are not being clever. They are making a very expensive mistake. Leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. And if anything I said made you feel even a little more like yourself, please hit like before you go.